Hello, everybody. Welcome to the R&D chat. I'm Sean Gibbons. I'm the community coordinator for Magic Online and Duels with Planeswalkers. And today I'm joined by Mark Globus and Alexis Jansen. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'm Mark Globus. I'm the senior producer in Magic R&D, and I was on the development team for Dragon's Maze.
I'm Alexis Jansen. I'm a senior developer on Magic Online. I won the first Great Designer Search, and I am the lead designer for Dragon's Maze.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, guys. Let's talk about some Dragon's Maze. So I've taken some questions from around the community, and I've also just got some really basic questions to start first. First off, just to get going here, what's the process like for Magic cards in general, like from idea to print?
Well, we start off very early on with a 7-year plan for Magic R&D. We're just kind of mapping out what our blocks are going to be. So in this particular case, we decided that for this year we were going to return to Ravnica, certainly one of our favorite worlds. Mm-hmm. With Ravnica, we decided that one of the things that was important to us this time was, rather than go with 4 guilds in the first set and 3 guilds in each of the next 2 sets, that we wanted to change that and have 5 guilds in Return to Ravnica, 5 guilds in Gatecrash, and then really blow it all out in Dragon's Maze with all 10 guilds being present.
Cool. So you started with the idea of basically the guilds, but you started off by kind of mocking up what you wanted all the sets to look like, right?
Right. We actually we thought we wanted to try 5, 5, 10 early on. This was long before design for Return to Ravnica even actually started. Mm-hmm. But we didn't want to set out and do design and development for all 3 sets and not be sure that it was all going to work out in the end. So we actually sat down quite a bit before design for Return to Ravnica started, and the leads for the 3 different sets all sat down and created sort of mock-up sets built out of cards from all of the existing sets in Magic, sort of Franken sets. Mm-hmm. And we just sat down and we drafted a version of 5, 5, 10 just to find out if it even worked. And we actually iterated on that for a couple months to kind of prove to ourselves that what we were trying to do was actually going to work.
Cool. So right at the beginning, though, you knew you wanted to try a large set, and a small set.
Right. We knew we wanted to return to Ravnica, and we knew that our goal was to try 5, 5, 10, but we needed to prove that it would work before we actually did the work.
Because usually it goes the other way. The standard for Magic sets is large, and then you have a small set, like with Innistrad was a big one. Mm-hmm. Dark Ascension, you get a small set, and then finish with Avacyn's Restored. So you kind of turned it around.
We did do some things different there. Typically we'll do if we're going to have the whole block play together, the traditional format is a large set, then a small set, then another small set. And we vary that up depending on the needs of the design, and also to provide a little bit of difference in play style, which is something we always look for.
Cool. So I hear Future League a lot. What is the Future League?
So the Future League is where we test out cards that before they get put in public's hands. Mm-hmm. What we really want to make sure is that the cards that we think are exciting actually play exciting, and that the cards aren't broken and aren't degenerate. So what we have is a bunch of people during the development phase of the process going through and playing with the cards as if it were standard about a year later. Okay, so after this set has come out, let's play with the cards as if this were standard. Mm-hmm. And what people are trying to do is break cards and see what happens, look and find out what's fun. And through that, we get a lot of great information on the set and figure out, okay, how do we want to price things? What mechanics are fun? What cards are fun? Mm-hmm. What's not so much fun? And try to weed that out of the set.
Okay, cool. So at this point, we're getting ready for the Dragon's Maze pre-release, but the Future League is probably, well, they're probably already done playing Theros and whatever else is going to be
Right.
out.
Right, that block. We still think of it in its code names of Friends, Romans, Countrymen. And so with that, Future League is focusing on Romans right now.
Okay.
And will quickly be on Countrymen.
Cool. All right. So you guys haven't been to the employee pre-release yet, which is going to happen actually right after this chat.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Looking forward to it.
So usually, so people, if you don't know, Wizards employees can't just go to a store and play in the pre-release. So to make it up to us, they do an office pre-release, which is a lot of fun. What guilds are you guys looking forward to playing tonight?
I always look for the aggressive guilds in the pre-releases because I want to make sure I actually have time to get my games in. Kind of an employer pre-release problem sometimes. So I played Rakdos in the first one, Boros in the second one, and this time I'm probably going to pick Rakdos and just hope I get something exciting to go with it.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Selesnya. I feel
All right,
like green
cool, me
white.
too.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. So, green white fits more of my ethos. And so, I really like the Selesnya, the ideals there. So,
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Selesnya, they served me well in the Return to Ravnica pre-release.
Nice.
Yeah, actually, I splashed a little bit of black for some stab wounds and got big guys out there, and then just sat pretty and stab wounded my opponents and just bugged the crap out of all my opponents.
That doesn't sound very philosophical,
Yeah.
Selesnya.
Sounds like it worked, though.
We'll sit back and meditate while the rest of Ravnica bleeds to death with stab wounds. So, outside of the pre-release, then what have you guys been playing? I know you just drafted the other day, Dragon's Maze.
Yeah, so I started off the draft with a Pontiff of Blight, so I was excited to start off going Orzhov. But then third pick I got a Maze's End, so I quickly decided 5-color Orzhov was the way for me and snatched up all the gates. So that was a lot of fun. I had a good time with that.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think I first picked a gate because the pack didn't tell me what I should be doing, and then the gates disappeared because Mark Globus was like
taking them
3 seats to my right. I think I ended up with a really bad pile of Izzet and Rakdos cards, if I remember correctly, but it was fun. It was still a lot of fun. I mean,
Cool.
You can usually put pretty much whatever you draft together in this format because it's a little bit slower and it's expected that you're playing 3 colors, so the cards kind of reflect that. So
Okay. I said I wasn't going to mention the last deck I played, but I've only played with Dragon's Maze once, and it ended up being a Dimir Golgari. And I thought, oh, great, put counters on unblockable guys, and then get in there for extra damage, and cipher them and everything, and it just did not.
Oh, it didn't quite come together.
It did not happen.
sounds like a valid strategy.
Yeah, I actually ended up milling myself somehow with like Golgari, the removal that gives them -1/-1 for each land. And then I started purposefully milling myself with the Dimir cards to get more lands in my graveyard. I'm like, haha, look how clever I am. And then I just ran out of cards.
Oops.
A little too clever.
Yeah, I outsmarted myself. So, speaking of Maze's End, just curious, what percentage of games do you think will start with turn 1 Guild Gate go? With the number of Guild Gates replacing lands in every booster pack?
I'd say a lot of them. I don't know exactly what percent, but
Okay.
with Dragon's Maze having a Guild Gate, or if you're lucky, a Shock Land in each pack in replace of the basic land slot. There are going to be a lot of Guild Gates floating around. We need that because of looking for as Alexis was pointing out, an environment in which people are going to be playing 3 colors, if not more, most of the time.
Right.
And so the Guild Gates really support that type of an environment. Guild Gate go, maybe 30-40% of the time.
Okay. I actually hope for a Guild Gate go, just so it starts me off nice.
I think it's a sign that you're starting off on the right foot, actually.
Yeah, unless you really, really want, like, maybe a Rakdos wouldn't want a Guild Gate go, because they want to get some, like, turn one like Cackler's out or something like that. So, getting a little bit deeper into what it was like making Dragon's Maze, you had a lot of obstacles to overcome with Dragon's Maze, it being not only a small set, but a set that had to encompass all 10 guilds of Ravnica. The other two sets had plenty of room, with 250 cards to do 5 guilds. How did you manage to fit all 10 guilds with 150 cards to work with, and what was it like dealing with that challenge?
I mean, we knew going in that we had to make every card count, so a lot of it was just simply, we know we get N number of cards per guild, let's just keep working until we find the best iteration of those cards. So there was a lot of really interesting cards that kind of just ended up on the cutting room floor because there wasn't room for them. A lot of it was just finding ways to sneak things in that did double duty. For example, we had to make sure we had call-outs to each of the mechanics, but we couldn't just put 3 cards that only cared about the mechanics. You'll note that some of the mechanic cards overlap with some of the guild champions. You'll note that some of them are in monocolor, some of them are in gold. There's just lots of just little places where we find ways to make cards serve multiple purposes. That was a big piece of that puzzle.
Cool. Mark, do you have anything to kind of add to what that was like?
So a lot of it, I think, also was taking from design how they wanted to slot things and make sure that they'd spent a lot of time with the set and looking to say, okay, we see that, well, we're going to get 3 extort cards, so all right, that's where we've got to play, and we'll push on a little bit and see if we want to be at 2 or 4 and see what feels good. But really looking at it from a slot standpoint and trying to keep close ties on what that was looking like.
Cool. Okay. So it's the 3rd set in the block. How much did the release of the other 2, the previous sets, kind of influence your development of the 3rd one, or had it kind of already?
Well, it's kind of already out there. There's very little that we can do to the set after the sets have been released. As we were talking about with Friends, Romans, and Countrymen a little while ago, we're already looking to transition our focus into Countrymen, and Theros hasn't come out yet.
Yeah, right.
Right? So being able to react to that is very difficult, and that's why we do have things like the Future League to be able to try to figure out what things are going to look like.
Okay, so that kind of solves your problem for you, just playing everything.
It kind of gives us a crystal ball, but it's a little cloudy.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't have thousands of people. You got the guys on the 3rd floor running it over and over and over again.
And because of that, there's a lot of tricks we use to build things into sets that are often referred to as safety valves. There's other things we do to make sure that the environment can give players the control and the tools that they need, rather than us having to predict exactly where everything's going to go, because we can't. It's just impossible.
All right, awesome. As far as a mechanic rundown, I don't want to go over every single mechanic in Dragon's Maze, but did you have any particular challenges with the Return to Ravnica or Gatecrash mechanics, and you maybe had trouble making them shine in Dragon's Maze, or how were you able to reinforce each guild and their mechanics?
Most of the mechanics weren't too difficult to fit in the quantities we wanted. We knew we only had room for approximately 3 of each mechanic, just based on the set size. So it was usually pretty easy to find a nice simple common for the mechanic and a nice juicy sort of build around rare. So most of the mechanics just sort of fit rather easily in that way. There was a couple mechanics that actually had a difficult time finding good cards for. I believe Cypher was a little bit difficult. There's only so many cards you can put a mechanic on where you want the card to do something that's useful to do before combat, but also useful to do after combat. It's a very restrictive mechanic.
Okay. All right. Let's see. So speaking of mechanics, let's talk about Fuse. The 11th mechanic. So what was it like trying to fit an 11th into a into a set that already had so many mechanics?
Fuse was sort of a way to sneak around the number of mechanics, because when we started the set, we knew we had to fit all 10 mechanics in, and we don't want our sets to be bursting at the seams with lots and lots of things, because we want to give each item its fair share of time. So an 11th mechanic in that sense is kind of out of the question. But at the same time, we have a set where all 10 mechanics you've already seen before. We want to add something new, so you have some reason that the set is unique and isn't just a rehash of the previous two sets. Fuse was sort of an attempt to put something in that fit naturally, something that would be intuitive, so people wouldn't have to devote a ton of time trying to figure out how it worked and what it meant.
Yeah, it was a great thing to add. I really have kudos to the design team for picking it, because it was a nice thing that was, as Alexa's saying, was new. But on the flip side, Return to Ravnica had split cards, and so it was also
kind of like
something that felt like it really belonged.
Right. Cool.
And so it was a really nice mechanic to have there.
How early did it go in as far as development process and everything? Did the Fuse cards kind of just go in and stay in?
It's interesting because when we were, as I mentioned, we did a pre-draft or a pre-design phase where we put a bunch of sets together from existing parts. When we did that, the test version of Dragon's Maze actually had a ton of made-up cards in it, because there just wasn't enough existing cards to make a test version of Dragon's Maze. I believe it was the second or third iteration of that test draft that the Fuse cards were added. So they were in fairly early in design, because design is the right time to play around with things that are a little bit more out there, a little bit more risky, which at the time Fuse cards were considered a little bit risky because they were kind of playing in territory that we hadn't played in before.
But that's also the fun part.
Yeah, it is. It's exciting when things like that work out.
Cool. Here's a mechanics question. This is from the Twitch chat. If you could change any mechanic, which you probably didn't have a lot of control over, being they were all established in Gatecrash and Return to Ravnica, but if you could change one, which one would you change?
It's tricky.
I know.
Yeah.
That's a tricky one.
So I guess the space that we play in for all 10 mechanics for the set, we're looking for mechanics that have a certain amount of breadth to them. If they have too much breadth, then we'd rather save them where they can shine and be larger. And if they don't have enough breadth, then we find that we're scrambling to try to get a few more cards. And as Alexis was pointing out earlier, the Cypher, we really, I think we used the space, okay? And most of the other mechanics gave us a few more options and choices so that we could find the right ones for the set. And Cypher more of demanded, this is the card that's here and available, bend the set around me.
Right.
And so that would probably be the one that I would look to see if there was something that might be a little bit more robust to just give us a touch more flexibility.
Right.
I wouldn't want to go too far. We don't want to use up a mechanic that is large and can support a large set, for example, here. This is one of 10 mechanics, but just a little bit larger would have been perfect.
Okay.
I generally agree with what Mark said. I think if there's another example, I think Overload might be the other one that was really difficult to find 3 more cards that actually made sense.
Okay.
But I do agree with the philosophy that he states.
Okay. I am looking forward to playing, what's the Overlord with, Overload with, let's see, I think it's common or uncommon. It's not the one that changes everything into dragons, because that is
The common
definitely awesome.
The common gives +1/+0.
Yeah.
Weapon Surge?
Yeah.
Target creature you control gets +1/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get some pretty nasty blowouts with that.
Yeah.
And it's pretty exciting. Yeah.
You thought you were killing all my creatures, and instead I'm killing all of yours.
Right.
Yeah, all for the low cost of 2 mana.
All right, let's see. I think we kind of covered everything about Fuse. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about, maybe as far as Fuse cards playing on the flavors of the different guilds, interacting with each other, the three color Fuse cards, anything like that?
We certainly intentionally made 3-color Fuse cards going in. One of the things during the design of the set that we were having a lot of trouble solving was we wanted to have, excuse me, we wanted some number of 3-color cards. We wanted to give people sort of a signpost that said, yes, 3 colors is actually a thing you can do in this set.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, the flavor of Ravnica just doesn't support 3-color cards. So Fuse cards were kind of a way to simulate that without going against the flavor of Ravnica.
Okay.
So.
All right. This one I believe is mostly for Mark, but if you want to weigh in, let's talk about Raul Zarek. What was the design process like for Raul Zarek, or the development process like for Raul Zarek?
So Raul, in development, we were looking for a card, a planeswalker that really embodied blue-red, but also felt unique and felt is it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we kind of felt that trying to play in the space of being a little bit chaotic but stormy. So we were trying to figure out what that meant, and so the first two abilities of being able to tap one thing and untap something kind of felt like that the little bit of chaos there, and then being able to lightning bolt someone also felt stormy.
Mm-hmm.
So that was good. It took a little while longer to get the ultimate mechanic of flipping 5 coins and getting that many
can't wait for that.
extra
It's gonna be
turns
awesome.
that turn out heads, right? So that's super cool. But it took a while to find that. I'm really excited about that as an ultimate.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's going to get 5 extra turns in the next couple of days, and they're going to be on.
That's exciting.
It's pretty exciting. I'm just I think it turned out well.
Okay. So it sounds like you knew, though, that you wanted an Izzet one. So did you ever have, was there any trouble choosing one guild over another for Planeswalkers, or?
Well, actually, where that choice came from was Raul Zarek was a Planeswalker that was introduced in Duels of the Planeswalkers. Mm-hmm. And from that, we saw, oh, yeah, he's from Ravnica, so we knew we wanted him. So the question then became, where does Raul Zarek fit in the block? Is he in Return to Ravnica, Gatecrash, or Dragon's Maze?
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't really ever the question of which guild. We had that defined.
Okay.
Right? Raul Zarek came from Duels of Planeswalkers. We knew we wanted to feature him. And then once it fell to Dragon's Maze, it was just a matter of making it feel like it was making Raul feel is it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Awesome. Let's see. I have this written on here. You don't have to answer it. Why does Raul Zarek love hanging out on rooftops so much?
I mean, if you were a storm-based planeswalker, where would you hang out?
Yeah. Okay.
in the middle of a city where there's no flat space whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see here. All right. Let's talk about mana fixing. You didn't have a lot of room in the set as it was, so you ran into a slight problem with mana fixing. And this is sort of a question for both of you, but Mark might have some development insight about after the fact and kind of the problems you ran into trying to find just commons, color fixing, stuff like that.
Very early in design, we knew we were going to need a lot of mana fixing. We didn't know how much, but we started with, if I remember correctly, we started with a cycle of artifacts at common and a cycle of monocolored commons. And throughout design, basically the feedback we just kept getting from draft and sealed was we need more mana fixing, that it isn't enough mana fixing. And I couldn't figure out a way to put more mana fixing in. It didn't make sense. I'm already using 15 of my common slots.
Mm-hmm.
Where else am I going to fit mana fixing without making the entire set mana fixing? And I believe it was Eric Lauer who actually came up with the idea of, well, we have this basic land slot, why don't we put more mana fixing in that slot too? And it was kind of one of those out-of-the-box ideas that once you hear it, you go, well, yes, we should do that. That's
cool.
perfect.
Yeah.
So it was pretty late in design when that happened. I think, I don't know if development was already starting to touch the set by then.
Yeah, one of the things that we always like about having that basic land slot in our sets is that it's a way to feature the world that we're going to, that we're exploring.
Mm-hmm.
And having guild gates just felt so natural once it was on the table. You know, the world is the guilds, right? And so then being able to have the guild gates being in every pack really, I believe, makes you feel like you're more there and more in Ravnica. And the fact that it's both a flavorful solution and a solution that makes the gameplay better is just fantastic.
Right. Cool. Yeah, I think once it was suggested, I don't think anybody from any of the teams, design, development, or creative, really ever questioned it. It just fit so naturally, which was really nice.
Excellent. So out of the whole set, do any cards kind of jump out at you? I know you've got card lists in front of you because I know the names change between when you've made them and when they're printed. So do any jump out at you as problem children that, like, oh, this card went through a million different iterations or anything like that?
Sounds more like a development question.
Yeah.
I don't know where to go with that question.
I would say, getting Ralzeric right took a lot of work.
He's a troublemaker.
Yeah, in general, Planeswalkers do take a lot of extra time and effort.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they are difficult cards to design and develop. There's a lot of pieces moving around there, and we want them to shine. Mm-hmm. So Planeswalkers always take a bunch of extra time and effort, and Ral's was no different.
I do remember in design that the gold rare fuse cards were very elusive in terms of finding abilities that made sense and fit on a card. I don't know if development had some issues finishing those off.
They were certainly challenging at times, yeah.
Yes.
In general, though, I think they worked out.
I think a lot of the monocolor fuse cards made it through design fairly untouched, but I think only one of the rares was ever locked down at all during design, even remotely close to where it is right now.
Because not only do you have to find something that plays off of the other side, but they've got to be guild fitting,
they do.
Right? Yeah.
And they have to fit on the card. You have to remember that a fuse card has less than half the amount of space for text than a regular card does.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, it is a challenging puzzle.
So let's see. Earlier in the month, you did an article that published on Daily MTG, Fusing Passion and Purpose. It mentions some of the cards from your original mock-up that made it into print. Do you know of? Can you name one or two of those?
The one set of cards that I remember specifically were actually the Clue Stones.
Mm-hmm.
We went through several iterations of artifact mana during design, but development eventually switched them back to what you see in packs, which happened to be exactly what we tried during the original draft.
Okay.
Which makes sense because design's job is to try lots of different things and iterate through lots of crazy things that may or may not work, but the Clue Stones were kind of a safe option to fall back to when we were all done. Other than that, probably a couple of the fuse cards, some of the simpler ones like Far and Away, I think were in one of the original drafts.
Okay.
That's about all I remember off the top of my head.
All right. Speaking of Clue Stones, though, so thinking about Clue Stones versus Key Runes, a lot of people looked at the new Clue Stones and or even when the Key Runes came out, it kind of reminded them of the signets for the different guilds. Were they kind of designed with each other in mind? It sounds like kind of if you came out with them right away, it was just your own idea going into Dragon's Maze. But when thinking about these color fixing artifacts, do you keep the existing ones in mind?
So we did. Sorry,
that's kind of like a weird question,
sure,
but
sure. So people love the old signets.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt.
Right.
One of the troubles that we had with those is green likes to do mana ramp, okay, And the signets kind of said, yeah, well, green can do it, but everybody can
Now
do it.
everybody can.
Right? And so what we wanted to do was find something that would fix your mana, but if you really were wanting that acceleration, you should look to green. If you wanted that fixing, okay, the colors that's available for everybody. So we really wanted to find appealing, good cards that allowed you to fix your mana that were not just going to take a bite out of green. And so making both the key runes and the clue stones at 3 mana instead of 2 did a lot to solve that. Right? It accelerates you to 5 mana, right, on turn 4 instead of 4 mana on turn 3, which is a big difference.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of the thought process there, and then just trying to figure out what we wanted out of those. We knew that the key runes, by having a body attached to them, made some more dynamic play, and made it so that if you drew them late, you would have a body, something to go and do with it. And the clue stones more gave you a way to cash it in for a new card, right? And so both of these gave you some additional options while not just infringing on that ramp that green has.
Okay. Anything to add, or that was actually?
I think that basically covered everything.
Let's see. So here's a question from Facebook, actually, Madison. With the task of fitting all 10 guilds into one set, you managed to fit a fair number of monocolored cards in there. Did you ever consider making the entire set multicolored?
We did that already.
Yeah.
We certainly, at the top of our minds the whole time, was how much gold should be in the set. We always knew that we wanted to be able to do the guilds justice, but at the same time you needed enough monocolor cards so that draft would work, frankly. If the entire pack was multicolor cards, then it would be a lot more difficult to actually draft or build a real sealed deck of any thing. And not only that, but the monocolor cards are part of the guilds. I mean, guilds are not pure multicolored. They have the monocolored pieces of them as well. So I think the way we ended up solving that was we moved a lot of the gold up in rarity so that we could have a large portion of gold in the set, but your pack would still have enough monocolored cards for draft and seal.
Okay.
So we kind of balanced that a little bit with that technique.
Right. We did the all gold set a few years ago with Shards of Alara, and it really puts a lot of challenges on the set.
Which you both worked on.
Yes, I was actually Alara Reborn. I was on that design.
Alara Reborn. Sorry.
Yeah,
yes. Yep. And doing that, you end up with really awkward solutions for mana fixing, for example. And while that was an awesome, splashy, cool thing, we like to have new, awesome, splashy, cool things.
Okay. Let's see. Let's talk about guild champions for a second. So where did the design for the champions sort of begin, or were they always there?
Certainly the design team, I don't remember if they were there from day one, but certainly it was a fairly early piece of the puzzle once the design team sat down and said, what do we want in this set? We decided that a cycle of 10 legendary creatures made a lot of sense. I don't remember when the creative came in and made them guild champions rather than just legends. But the goal from design from day one was sort of, let's create a legendary card for each guild that, as best as possible, embodies what that guild would want in a legend. Sort of thinking about it as an EDH thing, frankly. If I was playing an EDH deck that represented this guild, what would be the logical choice I would use for a legendary creature? And that was sort of how we drove the design of the 10 cards.
Cool.
There's also a thing that from the original Ravnica, the legends went over very well, and it was a continuity point for us to be able to say, okay, there are awesome legends that inhabit this world, we want to show you some more of them. And so trying to mimic some of the things that happened in the original Ravnica block, felt like this was a great carryover of having some more guild legends that you could focus on And when they work for Commander, hey, that's great.
That's yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of them. So I mean, every champion kind of works off of the mechanic of their guild, but people have noticed that, well, obviously not every champion uses the mechanic of their guild. Do you consider both? What was the kind of process like when creating a legendary creature to kind of represent each guild and working off of the guild mechanics? It might have been easier to just, make this one populate, make this one do something with cipher cards somehow, but they each sort of encompass the flavor of their guilds without always using the individual mechanics.
Right. Well, just for starters, some of the mechanics can't go on creatures. So
right, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like overload on a creature.
You could certainly have the creature refer to overload or cipher cards, but I think that would create designs that were a little hamstrung and not necessarily the best design for the card, and we didn't want to limit ourselves in that way.
Okay.
That's the main reason that they don't all refer to it. Other than that, it's just what's the best design for the card. Frankly, we didn't feel like we wanted to be limited by rules that didn't actually accomplish anything for the design of the cards by themselves.
Okay, great. So getting back to the pre-release coming up,
Yes.
where did the idea of the secret allies for the pre-release come from?
So when we started looking at sealed play for Return to Ravnica, we saw that it was pretty challenging and more difficult than most sealed play. Okay, so this is way back when we were just working on Return to Ravnica.
Okay.
And the reason being, with 5 guilds, you end up with all these gold cards, and they start pulling you in different directions. You want to have some focus. So that was where we kind of settled in on the, hey, choose your guild. You're going to get a guild pack that gives you a whole bunch of cards in that guild, and it's going to give you some focus for your play. And so not only is it going to make your deck building experience a little bit easier, but it's also going to let you play what you want to play. Okay. So now we fast forward into Dragon's Maze, and we knew that we still wanted people to be able to pick their guild.
Right.
But we were seeing that we wanted to encourage more 3-color play, and that if you're only focusing on one guild, that's only telling you to look at 1/10 of the set. The set is 10 guilds, right? And we felt that was too restrictive. So by saying, all right, you have a secret ally, that says, okay, you've got one guild that you've picked. You've got this other guild that overlaps with your original guild on one color. So now you've got 2 guilds. And then if you actually look at those 3 colors, there's a third guild that is kind of there as well.
The secret ally.
Kind of the secret ally, sure, right? And that gives you now 30% of the set, all right? And so this actually gives you this really nice, now a lot of the cards are viable for your deck. But you're still given that direction. You're still getting to play the guild that you are the most excited about. I know I'm excited. I'm going to get to play Selesnya no matter what, right? I'm going to go down there and soon. And I'm going to go get to pick Selesnya, and that's going to be awesome. And then I'm going to get something with that. And yeah, I'm going to still get that direction. I'm going to get to play what I want, and I'm going to get to play enough Dragon's Maze cards, because that's really what I want to do, right? If I was only doing Selesnya, that'd only give me 10% of the set. I want more than that.
Okay. Cool. Alexis, anything to kind of add to that?
That's pretty good explanation.
All right, cool. I agree. So, as players are kind of preparing for the pre-release and talking strategy, stuff like that, do you have any general tips you want to give anybody?
Pick a guild and play it. I mean, my recommendation is don't try too hard going in. You're going to be playing with a bunch of cards you've never seen. Deck building is going to be very difficult if you overthink it. Just pick a guild you like, get a secret ally, build your deck with those 3 colors, and have some fun. Don't overthink it too much.
Don't go 4 colors.
That's my recommendation.
Don't go 5 colors.
You can certainly go 4 and 5 colors if you want to, but my recommendation would just be build what's easy to build and go enjoy your games rather than
Mhm.
trying to maximize an extra 1% by looking at the extra cards that you don't know if you can even play at all.
Okay. Yeah, when I was making my Demir Golgari,
Right.
it was so tempting. Like, oh, I could just use like this white card is really good over here, and like, oh, I could just splash a little bit of red. And like before I knew it, I'm like, no, no,
Yeah.
you're getting greedy. It's not gonna work. And then
Yeah, we spend a
Too
lot
greedy.
of time balancing all the guilds.
Right.
All right, so at this point, most of you guys have played all of the guilds from Return to Ravnica and Gatecrash, so you should know what your favorite guild is. And I'd really recommend picking your favorite guild because you're going to play that best, right? And so by picking that guild, you're already setting yourself up for success because you're now going to get a whole bunch of cards that support the strategy that you know and love. So that'd be the biggest thing that I would recommend.
Great. Let's see. On that same topic, sort of, are there any like guild weaknesses that you keep in mind when, like, if you know you're going against a Boros player, like, what do you want to really watch out for? How does does having 3-color opponents make it that much harder to kind of predict what they're going to throw at you?
The prediction is sure a little bit more difficult, but yeah, if I see some battalion out there, yeah, I'm going to be worried about that third creature, right? If I start seeing some tokens showing up, I'm trying to keep those down so that populate doesn't get out of control, and I think that's again the lessons that people have learned and have seen and enjoyed, honestly, from Return to Ravnica and Gatecrash. Just
Keep your
remembering
past
that's all
lessons
going
in
to be
mind
here
as you go in.
and just know that it's going to be a little slower,
Yes.
right? Rather than people being able to play just straight Boros and bash you out of the gates, right? This environment is going to be a little slower. You're going to have a little bit more
Okay.
time to set up.
Right.
So, know that you're going to be under the gun a little bit less.
Right.
So don't feel
Right.
afraid to play another 5 cost or something
Right.
like that.
Yeah, you still gotta be a little careful about it.
Right. I'm looking for tips for myself.
Right.
Sure.
I would take that in the other direction and say that if you're going to play one of the aggressive guilds, especially Rakdos or Boros, realize that you're not likely going to kill them in 5 turns unless your deck is amazing. If you have the deck that can kill them in 5 turns, go for it because everyone else is going to be a little bit slower and you're going to win a lot of games. But realize that you're probably not going to be able to do that, and you should have a few cards in your deck that are prepared for the eventuality that you go to turn 6.
Give you some reach. Yeah.
So I've got a question here that might actually not apply to you two because, well, the question is, how do you think the Return to Ravnica guilds fare against the Gatecrash guilds? But you've kind of been just playing them against each other the whole time, right?
Right. And in the pre-release, you're going to get one of each, so it's going to be kind of hard for that to even have much relevance because
Yeah, true.
if you play the colors that you get, every game is going to be Return plus Gatecrash guild against Return plus Gatecrash guild.
Right, the thing that I think is going to be exciting is people start looking at some of the synergies there, right? So, being able to say, looking at Golgari and Simic together, right? They're both using +1/+1 counters in different ways. You've never really gotten to use them together before,
Right.
but now you can, right? So if you have a Corpse Jack Menace that's going to double the number of +1/+1 counters you get on something,
Oh my
and
gosh.
Simic Evolve happens, well, that's pretty cool and exciting, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be the exciting part.
Awesome. Here's one actually. Let's see. We've got a few now from the Twitch chat channel, so keep those coming. Keep asking us. Here's one from earlier. Why? Okay, it's a card-specific question. Why Putrefy and not Mortify?
Why Putrefy and not Mortify? I think it was. I don't remember exactly. I think it was just a matter of what fit at the time, right? They're different. We've got a limited number of slots for each guild. putrefy fit.
Right.
Okay.
And in case the question is asking something else in the sense of why not both, we just have a limited number of slots for reprints, and we want each one to carry as much weight as possible, and printing 2 reprints that kind of carry the same message probably wouldn't have been a good use of slots.
Okay, fair enough. Let's see. Can you talk more about the development process for the Maze Runners? Kind of already went over the champions, but was there anything else you kind of wanted to add about the champions and how they fit in? Were any of them more problematic than others, or?
Yeah, from a development standpoint, I don't remember anyone in particular
Right, I'm looking.
standing out.
A lot of these actually look a lot like the design versions. I think Amara and Lavina are the only 2 that look that different from what they were submitted as.
You made our work
Design.
easy.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, I like it when things make it through development. That means we did something right.
All right, here's another one. This is about fuse cards. How did you decide which guild combinations to turn into fuse cards?
You know, I don't actually remember what criteria we used. I remember we thought about it and certainly we made sure that each guild was on 1 card. So there's going to be 5 cards. There's going to be 5 pairings. But other than that, I don't actually remember how we arrived at the combinations we did.
From what I remember, there were a couple of different options of ways to do it, and then we started to make cards. Right? And cards started to fit in, pushing us in certain directions.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah, that does sound familiar. We tried. I think there was 4 different possible sets of cards, and we just went with the one where cards flew a little bit more naturally.
Yeah.
Here's one I actually think I had pretty early on, but design divine development is like a term that I've heard. What is divine?
Divine is sort of the overlap between design and development is the best way I would put it. There's sometime about, I want to say 2/3 through design, maybe-ish. Development takes a look at the set and tells design, basically, here's the things that worry us, here's the things that we would probably change if you handed it over to us today, here's the things we would like you guys to focus on and try to make better.
Okay.
And the goal of that is so that design has a chance to fix all of the problems that development sees, rather than simply handing it over to development and have development say, oh, we don't like this mechanic, throw it out, let's make something new. With the understanding that usually design is better at creating stuff out of whole cloth than development is.
All right.
Right, and it's also a way for development to really understand design's vision. Okay, so while design is running, the design team is working and figuring out what the set's about. The development team starts running as well, so now the design team and the development team are running at the same time. And the development team really needs to understand what the most important goals are from design, so that it's making the set play better, and it's balancing the set out for constructed, that the soul of the set is adhered to.
Right.
And so having that time where both of the teams are working on the set together gives development that insight to be able to continue to work on and maintain design's vision.
Okay. Is it always shared team members? Do you ever bring in anybody from outside the design team in order to...
During that period of time?
Yeah.
So what we do have is always one person who is on both the design and the development team.
Okay.
Okay, so that there is still some of that continuity even after Divine has ended. All right, so that person can be asked, hey, what was design thinking about this card, or about this mechanic, or about this cycle? But other than the design team and the development team, we generally don't bring in additional people unless we run into some severe issue and we need to spin up a mini team.
Right.
Okay.
If we have, like as Alexis was saying, development doesn't like a mechanic and we have to throw something out. Sometimes at that point we'll start up a new team to give some fresh ideas, and then they'll just kind of say, hey, here's something we thought of, and we'll report back. And then that can be decided whether we want to use that or not. We didn't have to do anything like that in Dragon's Maze. We used what was handed over. It was great.
Okay. Let's see. This just in. Also, keep your questions coming. Twitch chat. Last chance to ask an awesome question. Here is one. All right. Some cards like Pontiff and Blight could be multicolor, but they're monocolor. How do you decide whether to make a card mono or multi when you're designing them from the idea?
I don't actually know the cards off the top of my head.
So I think it's Pontiff of Blight is the...
Oh, Pontiff of Blight. Sorry, I thought that was
4
Yep.
BB 2/7 Extort, and all of your other creatures have Extort. Yes, you're certainly right. That guy could have been white, or had white in him. Could have been multicolored. And some of that is a numbers game, quite honestly. There are going to be cards that fit into one color, fit into two colors, only make sense in gold.
Right.
And when we have the option of some flexibility, that's a place that gives us the ability to move the set into a space that other cards can fit as well.
Right. It's very possible this card was multicolored at one point, and then we came up with a different white-black rare that we really liked, and it moved into black so that we could keep the card without keeping it in multicolor, just like Mark said.
Fair enough. One more. Oh, by the way, if you're looking forward to the pre-release this weekend, I don't know if pre-registration is closed for stores at this point, but if you can, make sure you pre-register for your pre-release events, just to make sure that you get in. Let's see. Are there a lot of infinite combos in the RTR? Oh, there are a lot of infinite combos in the RTR block, but were they on purpose, or do they kind of surprise you guys afterwards? Like, oh yeah.
We do try to make sure that there's some number of combos in every block.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we know that different players gravitate towards different things, and it's our job to make sure that there's fun things for everybody. Some people really love having giant monsters. Some people like having a huge army. Some people like having the crazy combos. In general, what we try to do with those combos is make sure that they're there, but they're not oppressive.
Okay.
So just like anything else can be broken, combos can be broken, and in the past
some of them can be bent, others can be broken.
Right. In the past, we've aimed for a level where that they were more frequently showing up in competitive play, but we ebb and flow. Right now, we're a little bit higher than say we were last year, but we do like to have that move. We do like to have that change, just so that the environment is always evolving.
All right, awesome. Yeah, Boros Reckoner comes to mind when I first saw that, what people were doing with that card. Yeah, my mind was blown. I instantly wanted to go out and try it.
Sure, yeah, it's fun.
Right.
All right, let's see. That pretty much does it. Are you getting any more? Okay, cool. All right, we are 5 minutes early, so you can quickly run downstairs and get in line for the pre-release. That's my gift to you guys.
Awesome.
So, Mark and Alexis, thank you so much for joining me. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Thanks
Had a
for
good
having
time.
us.
All right. And thanks everybody in the Twitch chat channel. Thanks everybody else watching. This is going to be up on YouTube as a recording soon. So hi, future me and other people that are watching
Future
YouTube.
watchers.
Yeah, future watchers. Hello. And let's see. Yeah, enjoy your pre-release this weekend, and